Welcome to the April 27th, 2020 Troy City Council meeting. We'll call this meeting to order and have the roll call from Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Abraham?
Here.
Councilmember Brooks?
Here.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Here.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton?
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Here.
All present. Okay, we'll move right ahead with the agenda. There are no certificates of recognition and special presentations this evening, no carryover items, no public hearings. So I move to public comment, which will be for items on the agenda and also not on the agenda. And I'll turn it over to City Clerk Dixon for any public comment that came in via email or voicemail.
Thank you. So we have 6 emails and 1 voicemail tonight. The first comment is from Shrisha Rao. She says, "This is Shrisha from Troy. I live in Somerset Apartment. We are planning to help the food drive in Troy for needy from HSS Hindu Siva Sang. I wanted to seek some direction and guidance from you or your team. Could you please direct me to the right person?" Second comment is from Peyton Downing. "Hello, Troy City Council. As an immunocompromised student returning from college, I was wondering if you could take the time to outline how the city plans on dealing with the current pandemic. Is it simply going along with all the guidelines Governor Whitmer has put out, or are additional steps being taken?" The third comment is from Arnie Damore Braver. "I wanted to take a minute to thank City Council for its long and continuing support of Stage Nature Center, particularly during this crisis. Stage Nature Center is a wonderful gem, allowing the children and adults of Troy to connect with nature. This, of course, is increasingly important in these times of stress." Comment 4 is from John Lavender. "To Mayor Ethan Baker and members of Troy City Council. On behalf of the Troy Historical Society, I want to thank City Manager Mark Miller and Assistant City Manager Bob Bruner for presenting tonight's resolution to increase the Troy Historic Village operation budget by $50,000 in the current fiscal year and the accompanying budget amendment. This additional assistance is welcome to help us to continue the public-private partnership, which has benefited both the City of Troy and the mission of the Troy Historical Society. As we have shown in the documents provided, we have lost all earned revenue for the remainder of our fiscal year and beyond. This has made uncertain our ability to weather the current crisis and continue operations at the Troy Historic Village without additional financial assistance. We have launched an appeal for donations and have applied for grants and loans that are intended to support small businesses and nonprofits experiencing financial difficulty due to COVID-19, including the Paycheck Protection Program. Thus far, we have not been approved for any of the grants or loans. As we look to the future, the village staff is considering ways to change our programming and business model to embrace new ways to continue presenting interesting historical programs. We wish to enjoy our partnership with the City of Troy for many more years to come. I support the approval of Agenda Item I-4. Comment 5 is from Dave Lambert. "Mayor and City Council. First, I'm writing to thank the City of Troy and its taxpayers for their ongoing financial support of the Troy Nature Society. As you know, this support helps us provide management and programming services for the Stage Nature Center. This arrangement has been a win-win solution for our community. We are able to maintain and enhance this wonderful green asset of our citizens, and at the same time, city government is able to spend less general fund revenue on the center than before the Great Recession of 2008. Second, I hope you'll give serious consideration to supporting the budget amendment drafted by Assistant City Manager Bruner. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we may need to eliminate 1 or possibly 2 of our major fundraisers that would normally be held during the next few months. In addition, we anticipate revenue shortfalls due to the elimination of current and projected programs. Adoption of the proposed city budget amendment will help the Troy Nature Society weather the current emergency so we can reopen this magnificent city facility to the public when possible. Thank you for your consideration." Comment 6 is from Paul Hof. "To all the valued members of Troy City's Council, I have been recently elected to the board of the Stage Nature Center here in Troy. As a longtime resident of Troy, I have enjoyed the Nature Center with my family over the years. Serving on the board is my way of trying to give back to this jewel of the community. We know that the City Council has been a strong supporter of the Nature Center over the years as well. I want to add my note of appreciation for your actions and encourage you to continue to provide ongoing support in the future. During these challenging times, dealing with COVID-19, the center has provided a healthy outlet for our community. I believe this shows another indication of its value. Again, thank you for your good works and support. And we have one voicemail.
Hello, this is Padma Kupa, your state representative serving the people of Troy and Clawson. I just want to remind everyone that we are working remotely and can be reached at padmakupa@house.mi.gov or 517-373-1783. A quick update on what's happening in Lansing. The legislature held a special session on Friday, April 24th to appoint a joint select committee around COVID response. However, 3 important bills were not referred to committee, including mine to restore paid sick leave, HB 5628. We will be back in session on Thursday, April 30th, as we must get the budget done and ensure that we put policy in place to recover from the pandemic, particularly small businesses, for small businesses. I am part of the Downtown Business Coalition. We are working with local small businesses, gathering information to ensure that the necessary legislation is put in place to help rebuild our economy. In the meantime, our office is working on responding to the hundreds of constituent concerns that we are receiving, particularly requests for help with applications for unemployment and the Paycheck Protection Program for small businesses. Any questions you have can be emailed to padmakupa@house.mi.gov or 517-373-1783. Please sign up for legislative updates at kupa.housedems.com and check michigan.gov/coronavirus as information and frequently asked questions are updated on the website daily. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes those that have submitted public comment via email or voicemail. As a reminder to the public, as long as we are having these virtual meetings, you are encouraged to provide public comment to any item on the agenda or not on the agenda via email at publiccomment@troymi.gov, or you can call and leave a voicemail to 248-524-3302. And again, the way is where you leave a voicemail and the city clerk will read them into the record as she just did. Now's the opportunity for city council or city administration to respond to anything that came up during public comment. And I'd like to ask if City Manager Miller, if you're prepared just perhaps to respond to the second one, Peyton Downing, regarding what City of Troy is doing to protect its residents and working with the governor and the county executive and the public health orders. Could you speak to that just briefly?
Yes, I can respond briefly, but I'd like to follow up with something in writing. First of all, we being city attorney and city manager and our staff, we follow all of the governor's orders and apply them appropriately. Our emergency management team also coordinates with the Oakland County Emergency Management Center. We're also working internally, both at Public Works through facilities and buildings and grounds, and we're already starting to put up protective barriers to stop the spread where there are interaction places in our workplaces. And Human Resources is working on a policy for appropriate behavior once we start moving into the building. And we can listen to the question and expand upon it in the future.
Okay, I appreciate that. Does anyone on City Council like to respond to any of the public comment this evening? Not seeing. Councilwoman Hoderick?
The first comment about getting to the right person in terms of food donations, do we have any information we can provide to them? Maybe email them?
City Manager Miller?
We'll look at the contact information and we will contact them and see if we can help them out with and connect them with the appropriate organizations.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, that was a good question, Councilmember Hoderick. I was going to follow up on that as well. Also, to those of you who called about the support for the Nature Center and the Historic Village, I'm sure we'll have a little bit of discussion about that when that item comes on the agenda here shortly. So thank you again for all of you that participated in public comment. We encourage you to continue to do that. especially as it relates to our budget, which, as you know, we're reviewing and we are working towards approving in May. So, again, public comment at troymi.gov or voicemail to 248-524-3302. So that concludes City Council and City Administration response to the public comment. So we move on to regular business. Actually, there's no postponed items, so we move on to regular business. First, our mayoral appointments. I'd like to move the appointment of Rosemary Kornacki, Carolina Noguez Ortiz, and Rami Sweden to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority for the terms that expire April 30th, 2023.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton, that we appoint Rosemary Kornacki, Carolina Noguez Ortiz, and Rami Sweden to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority for the terms that expire April 30th, 2023. Is there any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Yes.
Motion carries, and we thank the three of them for continuing to serve on that board. That concludes the mayoral appointments this evening, so I'll turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton for the City Council appointments.
Thank you, Mayor. Troy City Council appoints to the, I'd like to move that the Troy City Council hereby appoints to the Charter Revision Committee Cynthia Wilshire for the term expiring April 30th, 2023, and to the Zoning Board of Appeals, Michael Bosenbrook and James McCauley for the terms expiring April 30th, 2023.
Support.
City Manager Miller, did you have something to say?
I'm looking at the agenda, and those are nominations, not appointments. Am I correct?
No, those are appointments. They were nominated at the
They
previous
were
meeting.
nominated at our last meeting, so they should be appointed this
Okay.
evening.
I missed it. I'm sorry.
So, okay. Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton and supported by Councilmember Brooks, I believe, that we appoint Cynthia Wilshire to the Charter Revision Committee for the term expiring April 30th, 2023, and to the Zoning Board of Appeals, Michael Bosenbrook and James McCauley for the terms expiring April 30th, 2023. Any discussion? Okay, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker.
Yes. Motion carries, and again, we thank the three of those Troy residents for continuing to serve on our boards and committees and appreciate their commitment to our city. That concludes the City Council appointments this evening. We now move on to nominations. There are no mayoral nominations this evening. Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton, are there any City Council nominations? Okay.
Nope.
That concludes that as well. And there is no closed session request this evening in I3, so we move on to I4, which is fiscal year 2019 to 2020 Historic Village and Nature Center budget amendments. It'll be introduced by City Manager Mark Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to turn the floor over to Assistant City Manager Bob Bruner. He's going to make the presentation on I4. Thank you.
Very good. City Manager Bruner.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Mark. I've tried to summarize the history and the relationship between the city and both societies in the memo, but for the folks at home or who maybe haven't had a chance to read that, just briefly, both the Troy Historic Village and the Stage Nature Center were once operated by the city with general fund revenue before the Great Recession specifically. And if you look at page 180 of the proposed budget for the coming fiscal year, it actually includes a chart that shows the operating budget history for both facilities since fiscal year 2009-2010. And those pictures are worth 1,000 words because they show that The city spent more than $500,000 on village operations that year, and nearly $400,000 on nature center operations that year. And then the Great Recession came, and the city was forced to change the way many services were delivered. And some of the public comments touched on this history as well. So in 2010, the city entered into agreements with the Troy Historical Society and the Nature Society, and those agreements have allowed the city to keep these facilities open while spending much less general fund revenue on than we did before. And under these agreements, the Historical Society and Nature Society provide management and programming services to the city, and the city appropriates funds to each organization. So in the way the city contracts for a lot of services with both nonprofits and for-profit services, this is really a contractual relationship. Obviously, it's much more than a contractual relationship, but fundamentally, that's what we're talking about here. And those arrangements worked very well for many years, and they were renewed and extended in 2016 and 2017, and then COVID-19 happened. And now these nonprofits are obviously financially stressed, and we're concerned about the future of the relationship between the city and each society. So given the fact that the city is going to make an appropriation in the coming year, we came up with this idea of basically amending the current year's budget for an additional $50,000 for each organization. It's basically kind of in advance on the coming fiscal year. That way it solves cash flow problems and helps ensure that both societies can continue to exist in the short term and give us time to figure out what the long-term strategy is going to be for both organizations and both facilities. So I will point out that the agreement between the city and each society governs the relationship, and the appropriation is the way the funding flows from the city to each organization. So if the city council does amend the budget, the current fiscal year budget tonight, and make an additional appropriation, then that money would be subject to the same terms and conditions of the existing agreements. Now, the agreements were attached in the agenda packet. I think it's a total of 69 pages. I haven't read all the agreements in great detail, but long story short, the organizations couldn't spend this additional funding on anything that wasn't covered under the existing agreements. But we obviously, public comment, we've received positive feedback from both societies on the proposal. So with that, I'll try to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from council at this point? Councilmember Brooks, did you have a question?
Yes, Bob. I think you answered this, but I just wanted to make sure that all the organizations felt that this was sufficient and for them.
Yeah, I hate to characterize anybody else's opinion, but I did receive a strong positive email from the Historic Society, and I think you heard in public comment before the meeting support from both.
Any additional questions from council? I actually had a question. You just stated, Bob, that this budget amendment for the current fiscal year would act as an advance against future appropriations. Was that what you meant to say? Meaning that it's been, I mean, obviously we haven't approved a budget for next fiscal year, but is the idea that perhaps we don't appropriate as much next year on this next budget that we're working on because we're giving it in advance now, or was that just a way that you stated it?
No, just the way that I stated it. What we're recommending now is a $100,000 appropriation in the coming fiscal year. But if best case scenario economic conditions improve and the additional $50,000 assuming it's approved tonight, was too much or more than enough, then it could be adjusted next fiscal year. But that's to be determined.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify that. And the other question is, if we approve this resolution tonight, how soon would the checks get cut to those two organizations?
That would be a better question for Rob.
Yeah, so the next next list of bills will be in 2 weeks.
Just curious. All right, thank you. We did appreciate the memo, Bob, and the explanation there in your presentation. I think that gave a good summary. We did receive a proposed resolution for I-4 that came as a late submittal. And would anyone like to move that resolution, or better yet, does anybody actually have that resolution in front of them? I have it in front of me. I'm happy to move it if none of you do. Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Sure. I'll move I-4 fiscal year 2019 to 2020 Historic Village and Nature Center budget amendments as printed in the late submittal.
Support.
But do we need to read it?
Oh.
Do we need to read the whole thing?
Looks like City Attorney Bloom would prefer that you do.
Sure, I'll be happy to do that. Okay. Resolved that Troy City Council hereby amends the fiscal year 2019-2020 general fund operating budget to increase the Historic Village and Nature Center operating budgets by $50,000 each.
Okay. That was moved by Councilmember Erickson Galt and supported by Councilmember Chamberlain Krianga. That we approve I-4 fiscal year 2019 to 2020 Historic Village and Nature Center budget amendments as just read into the record by Councilmember Erickson Galt. Discussion on I-4. Oh, Assistant City Manager Bruner.
Sorry, I feel like some of the public comments maybe gave me a little bit too much credit for this. I want to make sure that everybody knows that Mark and Rob and Lori were all involved in the preparation of this proposal. I got to put my name on it, but this was a team effort. So I just wanted to add that. Thanks.
Very good. City Manager Miller.
Yeah, Bob forgot one person. Elaine both actually helped out too with the Nature Center.
Very good. Okay, well, I'm sure that Lorraine Campbell and Carla Reed both were very pleased to have conversations with all of you, or all of you that did participate. I just want to say as a brief comment regarding this, certainly budget amendments we take seriously, and we're not just throwing money around. This is obviously an unprecedented time, and we're dealing with COVID-19 and how it's affecting all of our city and everything out there. Something for me to, just as an extra point, we've already committed, spent a good amount of money on the building, the Barnard House at the Historic Village, for example. We've been investing money in that, and we've spent a lot of money. And it seems, of course, it makes sense that we continue to help them with operations, especially when we've already put such a big investment into the buildings and the public spaces there. Just as a reminder to everybody that we have an obligation by the contract that we take care and maintain the grounds and the buildings on the village and the Nature Center. And this is the right thing to do for both of those gems to our city. So I appreciate all of you working hard on that since our last conversation about it. And I'll call for the vote. Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krianga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next on the agenda is I-5 fiscal year 2020 to 2021 budget discussion, and will also be introduced by City Manager Miller.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and rest of council. Although this item, fiscal year 2020-21 budget, which also includes the 3-year budget, is a regular agenda item, it is unusual in that it's really only a discussion. There's no action required this evening specifically. As you recall, 1 week ago on April 20th, we conducted a study session remotely, and we fielded quite a few questions before for the meeting, right up to the meeting, and since the meeting, and we've provided considerable amount of questions and answers on the agenda site, even including the previous one. So all of that is out there for the public to review. Hopefully we've answered your questions and there's no outstanding ones. Just also would like to note that we have a public hearing scheduled on May 11th, and according to one of the governor's orders, that will have to be a remote meeting. You could, as city council, approve it at that meeting. However, we recommend that you continue the public hearing to May 18th. And since the governor's order expires on May 13th, that may be a meeting where we can conduct in person. We'll have to wait and see. So we've provided all the information we could provide for council. This is an opportunity to clarify any questions that you have and also have any discussion or direction to city management. With that, we will turn the floor over to the mayor and the rest of council, and we'll answer questions and assist you in any way you need assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone on council like to start with a question or comment? Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mark, and everyone for answering all our questions, especially all of the many, many questions I had. You've answered them all very quickly and succinctly, so thank you. I'm pretty comfortable with the budget from where it's at. I do agree we should, if we can, wait till we have a true public meeting before we approve it. I know we can't really go much later than the second May meeting. My only thoughts are, and I've said this before, is I would just like to, me and all of City Council, to be updated as regularly as we can without overburdening the staff on how our revenues are looking, particularly our state shared revenue, our Gas Tax Act 51 revenue, and the different kind of recreation revenue. And I know we just opened the golf courses again. The kind of revenue we're seeing there and the costs there, just keep us updated, since this is unprecedented, and any major shifts or any major changes we stay on maybe monthly at the least. I know we do get a quarterly update on the budget, but I think a little ahead of time, and then comparing it to previous months from previous years would be very useful too, just to keep, so we can keep on top of how this is evolving and everything.
Okay. Anyone else? Councilmember Hodrick?
I know there's concern about making sure the public, feels and sees this as transparent a process as possible. And if it does turn out that we do have to do this, via remote meeting, in many ways, the hearing, we can still make sure we hear from residents, and this doesn't preclude the input. Just like tonight, City Clerk Dixon, read into record the emails. We were able to hear voicemails. I want the public to feel assured that everything is, frankly, as it would normally be if we met in person. You would come to the microphone, you would read your comments. It isn't a give and take, even in a public meeting. We hear you, we respond. We can hear you through this process, and we will respond, and we want to hear from you. If you have input, please participate. All of our questions are, as City Manager Miller said, with the budget on the website, so you can see what we've been asking. The budget is very thorough. I continue to go through it and look at it, and refreshing my memory about things over time, especially given that we're heading into what could be a difficult time. I'm flashing back to 2008 and the historical perspectives, and I really appreciate all the answers to the questions. Councilman Hamilton pummels staff with questions. And it's good, because he thinks of things I would never think of, and I'm being educated in ways, even 7 years in now, learning about things. So bottom line point, please, to the members of the public that are watching, while this does seem different, in many ways it's exactly the same. Just join us in the remote process of it. We do want your input. Everything's out there, and we're going to need you to hang with us as we go through this time. And it will continue to be transparent, even as things unfold over the next coming months or probably a couple years, as we mitigate the impact, the economic impact of this pandemic. So thank you to staff for how transparent everything is, how quickly you're getting it on the website. I do appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yeah, I want to thank our city staff, in particular Rob and Nino, for their very enlightening and educational responses to our questions. I am not a numbers person. Finance is not my background, so it's really great to have these wonderful professionals on staff who can educate us as to how things work. And in particular, and this is something I want to make sure that the public pays attention to, is how municipal finance works. It's complicated, it's fraught with peril. When you hear us talking about the Act 51 funding, the state revenue sharing, it may sound like a foreign language, and in some ways I can certainly understand that, but it's important to understand where our funding is coming from. We have the blessing of having most of our funding coming from property taxes, which if depending on how severe our economic downturn is over this next year or so, that'll may affect that, but not immediately. But we are going to experience some immediate effects from some of these other revenue sources. So I think it's important that the public pays attention to these issues and is educated as we are, because it's going to make a difference in how our budget goes forward. So again, I just want to thank our staff in making sure that we are as informed as possible on these complicated finance issues.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Abraham.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to piggyback off of Councilwoman Erickson Galt's comments. We're in the middle of a free fall, and when you're in the middle of a free fall, you don't really know where the bottom is. And we saw this in 2008 and 2009, where when you look at the city budget then, you couldn't see the impact of the greater economic situation. It was really the next 2 years after that where the impact was known. And in 2008 and 2009, you could not have forecasted with great accuracy what that impact would be. Since 2008 and 2009 was not all that long ago, and there are a number of us that were around at the time and watching the city's budgets, we can mentally forecast maybe what the impact is going to be and what it's going to hit, but to speculate beyond that is not responsible. But you can see the concern that we all have, that we know that there is going to be impact. It may not be felt right away, but we are very mindful of it. We are looking at the budget, even tonight's budget amendment for the current fiscal year, very carefully with a view of sustainability, for a view of protecting the city's assets, not just in the short term, but it's also in the long term, because when you think about the assets and the money that we put into it, it's considerable. And it's not just the city's assets, it's every resident's assets, and we need to be very, very mindful of how we treat it. So if you don't hear a lot of discussion maybe tonight, please know that it's not that we are taking this without seriousness. We are. It's just a matter of how it's going to unfold. And I'll go back to something Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton was saying is it's going to be very important and do something perhaps other councils hadn't regularly done, which is monitor the budget on a more regular basis. And I don't know if that's a monthly update. I don't know if that's a quarterly presentation to council meeting, both, or something completely different. But I think understanding how that process should be is going to be very essential to how we manage going forward as a body. And City Manager Miller, I don't know if you have something more to share with us today, and if you don't, that's fine. But I think that will be a very key element to the discussion that we have when we open the public hearing on May 11th.
Thank you. City Manager Miller, did you have anything you wanted to add at this point? Yes. Okay, go ahead.
Mayor and Council, I really don't have a lot to add, but I can tell you that Rob, Chief Financial Officer, Bob, Assistant City Manager, and I are in discussions all the time. And I think as this budget gets approved, the dust will settle and Rob will have a little more time and we can discuss internally how we will update council, and we'll get back to you with the method that we propose. At this time, we don't really see any impact yet, but we'll have to see the lack of revenues at certain of our facilities to see how that will impact us. I was surprised to see that one of our golf courses over the weekend, 2 days, did over $10,000 worth of business, which was a real surprise.
Very good. Any other council comments or questions on this issue? Okay. I just have a couple, just as a reminder to everybody, our budget and the questions that have been asked so far and the answers that have been asked so far are all in writing, and they're on our website, troymi.gov. I believe there's a link right there from the homepage now in one of the slides that takes you to all that information. So we appreciate city management and city staff for taking care of that and making sure it's as transparent and open to the public as possible, because there's very good information in the answers to those questions. And there were very good questions asked by my fellow council members. So there's good information there for the public. We will, although we may continue the public hearing for the budget to the May 18th meeting, we will definitely, as Councilmember Abraham just stated, start it at May 11 meeting. Virtually, and we will have our budget presentation and we will start the process then. And so we certainly can take public comment up through that meeting as well. And again, it's public comment at troymi.gov for email comment, or you can call 248-524-3302 to leave a voicemail. You know, it actually is a little bit easier to do that than to come down to City Hall and wait your turn to speak. So maybe that will encourage some people to utilize that. But we will start that process on May 11th, which is our next regular scheduled meeting, because that is how we've published it online and put up the notices on our website and everything. I also just want to say, you know, one of the things that's been talked about a lot over the years, or at least I've heard in circles, is our fund balance, unassigned fund balance. And I really think we've done, and previous councils have done a really good job, and previous administrations at City Hall have done a good job of creating a budget that is conservative in nature and made to weather some storms like this. And we have a fund balance that's relatively high right now, and that's a testament to previous councils that have made that a priority to make sure that we increase that that percentage, to make sure there's funds available for times like these. Because I'm sure we it's easy to spend money and it's easy to find projects to spend it, but it's more important to save it so we have it in times like this, and we'll be better off because of that, in my opinion. So I thank you to the previous people who've worked to make sure that money is there. And this was kind of touched on by City Manager Miller, but although council may not receive reports on the the budget and the finances of the city monthly or quarterly, I promise you that CFO Rob Malzek will be looking at it every single day, and City Manager Miller and Assistant City Manager Booner they'll be working on it every single day. So I don't want anyone to the city to think that it's just going to be a monthly check. It's a daily and serious look at everything. So we will just get our reports at some level. And I appreciate you, Mark, for letting us know how you plan to do that, and then obviously the consistency of doing that. Those are my comments on that. I think it's as I said at the previous budget meeting, it's a very, it's a good budget, and it looks like a budget that we would have if we weren't in the middle of a global pandemic. So we'll be mindful of that But as we've said a bit tonight, and we have in the past, it's because as of right now, our finances are in pretty good shape still. And it may be in the future budgets that we have to address some of these concerns. So I look forward to having that official presentation and public hearing start on May 11th. And we'll go from there and recognize that we can make changes as we need to for as long as we need to. Any other comments or questions about I-5? Okay, there's Assistant City Manager Booner.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that because we're doing questions and writing, and we're doing a lot of extra stuff as it relates to the budget this year. Things are a little more difficult to find on the city website. They're spread out among different pages, and so we are working on basically having a one page where folks can find the presentation and the questions and answers and everything. So we'll get that updated today, so it's a little more user friendly. Or I'm sorry, not today, this week, so it's a little more user friendly.
Are you sure? You got a little under 4 hours left today to get that done, Bob. You want to do it? No. All right, thank you. Appreciate that. And yeah, it is there. The answers are a few different places, but it'd be nice if they could be streamlined into one portal and easy click and review. So thank you. There's no action item for I-5, so I believe we'll move on to the consent agenda. Would anybody like to pull an item on the consent agenda tonight? Would anybody like to move the consent agenda tonight? Councilmember Erickson Galt, thank you.
I'll move item J, consent agenda, as printed in the agenda.
Support.
I also believe there was a late submittal for the consent agenda. There might have been two, actually. There was a change to the minutes, and there was an additional proclamation. I just wanted to make sure that's included in what you just moved in the consent agenda. So.
Yes.
Okay. Moved by Councilmember Erickson Galt, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton, that we approve the consent agenda as printed in the agenda packet, including the two items that were submitted as late submittals. Any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton.
Just wanted to point out J6, which is scheduling the library funding special discussion meeting for Troy City Council on Monday, June 8th, 2020. It's a very, very critical and important discussion for our city, for the future of our library, with its funding source being cut off at the end of next year, of the upcoming fiscal year. So this discussion is incredibly important. It's only a little over a month away. So I just want to point this out to residents, that this is a critical part of our community that needs to be addressed immediately.
And that will be at the Troy Public Library. And it will also be, I was confirmed today that it will be recorded and up on our YouTube after the fact, I'm assuming. That would be my guess. So, Councilmember Hoderick, did you have a comment? That covered it? Okay, thank you. We'll talk more about that when it gets approved tonight, I suppose, just to remind everybody. But okay, if there's no other discussion on the consent agenda, I'll vote Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Motion carries. And I thank you for bringing that June 8th meeting and putting it on the agenda as we discussed at the last meeting. I think that's a good thing for our city to have on the calendar and to be working towards. Next up are memorandums and future council agenda items. So we'll have that public hearing on May 11th. Next up on the agenda will be council referrals. There are none, which takes us to council comments. Somebody like to go first? Or at all? Not seeing any hand. Oh, Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Yeah, I was contacted today by Senator Peter's staff. He just wanted to remind everyone that he and his staff are available to help if anyone is having any issues, especially with federal agency issues such as SBA loans, or which I know personally is a huge issue for a lot of small businesses, to reach out to his staff you can just go to his website, which is peters.senate.gov, and there's a help tab, and you can reach out and explain what your issue is, and his staff is there to help you. And I just wanted to pass that along.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other council comments? All right, I'll go. Again, just thank you to city staff and city management for working so hard with our budget and answering all of our questions and keeping that information transparent and out for the public to see, and for giving us some of digging into the numbers and providing a lot of information to us when we've asked for it. Really, we do appreciate it. And I think it will make us in the city that much better because of it. I also want to thank city management and staff for all of the work they're continuing to do from while they're working at home or limited times at City Hall and their other around the city. We continue to have, I hear good feedback from people, but they're still getting their needs met when necessary. And I think that's a testament to your leadership, Mark, and to the support you have in your office, and all of our employees. That it's not easy to transition to working from home, and we appreciate what they're doing to make that happen and to keep our residents' concerns and needs met. It's very, very important. I also wanted to give a reminder to everybody in our city who is thankful that our golf courses are open now for walking only. Our golf courses, Billy Casper Golf has done a very good job of managing our golf courses over the past several years now. And from what I've seen this weekend, they continue to do an excellent job as they're now forced to manage a golf course or two golf courses in an unprecedented time. They are taking extra precautions as every place they can to make sure that there's proper social distancing and limited contact with staff and machinery and such. And we did have quite a few people out of the golf courses this weekend walking our courses, which isn't easy if you're at Sanctuary Lake. But I just want to remind you that you still need to follow proper social distancing, and you could still be passing or spreading COVID-19 even if you're asymptomatic and you don't feel like you're sick. So keep that in mind, please. Same goes with our city parks. We have beautiful parks in our city, and I know the weather was finally a little bit nice this weekend and today and even tomorrow. I think it's going to be a little warmer. But we really need you to maintain a safe distance, at least 6 feet apart from other people in the park. I had a resident send me pictures today of some disc golfers who seemed awfully close and huddled together and didn't look like family members, for what that's worth. So please continue to follow the governor's orders as it relates to staying at home for non-essential items, and for when you do go out for recreation, maintain social distancing, and do everything you can to keep yourself safe and those around you safe. I continue to hear stories all the time of wonderful volunteers in our city making masks for people, delivering masks. I heard today about an organization and a woman that donated 500 masks, handmade masks to City Hall for city employees to use when they come back to work. We thank you very much for that. I think that is a wonderful gesture and something that's so nice about our city and the people that are here. Continue to support our healthcare heroes and our first responders and frontline responders. We are so grateful to have them and all that they're doing for our residents. And we have to celebrate them somehow when they have a chance to breathe and calm down a little bit. So we'll have to think of something. But finally, I again want to thank you for staying home and staying safe. The streets are still pretty empty out there if you're out in your car for essential business, which means that people are staying home and following the orders. I know things got relaxed a little bit with the governor's most recent order, and there's lawn care services now and landscaping, which I think, it came at the appropriate time. But we ask that, if you do have a lawn care service, please don't feel that you have to go out and talk to your lawn guys. Some of them are just as concerned about being out as they are not working. So they don't want to put themselves in a situation where they need to step away a little bit. So please be mindful of that. Social distancing is still the most important thing right now. We're hopeful that our numbers will improve and continue to improve, and we'll get back to a little bit of a different and better normal in the near future. But in the meantime, thank you, Troy, for all that you're doing, and we appreciate it. And keep up the good work, and hopefully we'll get through this as soon as we can. Okay. Next up on the agenda are reports. Anybody have any comments about reports this evening? I know there was a question submitted about P2, the suspension of sidewalk replacement. There was a very thorough questions and very thorough answers provided by Kurt Bovenseed, the Department of Public Works. Any comments on the reports? Not seeing any. There's no closed session request this evening, or no closed session. So that takes us to adjournment. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.